We are so close. Flight 4 Starship testing. Was it supposed to look like this? Exact location of the second tower confirmed, another section on the move, SpaceX breaks another record, ULA gets slapped with a fine, and Starliner is delayed. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. What a week it was. SpaceX might get the license without a mishap investigation, the suborbital tank farm is disappearing, and Kathy Leaders hints at a third megabay. Wanna know more? Let's do this, follow me. Welcome back to Starbase, where in less than 2 weeks we may see another thrilling launch of the world's largest rocket. This mission will be particularly exciting because it will utilize brand new ground infrastructure. That is part of the development. Before the third flight, we saw some major changes to the heart of the launch site, the orbital tank farm. These upgrades included the installation of new pumps and subcoolers, which hugely improved the fueling time. Traditionally, it took about 90 minutes to fuel the stack fully, but with these changes, that time was halved to just 45 minutes. Halving any completion time in the space industry is a crazy achievement. And on top, this significantly reduced propellant waste caused by boil-off. The upgrade performed flawlessly, allowing the teams to move to the next phase, integrating the horizontal tanks. Over time, we learned that 4 of these were connected to the liquid nitrogen lines, while the remaining 5 were dedicated to liquid oxygen. As testing of the new tanks proceeded, SpaceX slowly began dismantling the vertical tank farm. The water tanks were the first to leave the launch site, soon followed by the nitrogen tanks. After some period of silence, mostly spent removing the perlite insulation, the shell of the second nitrogen tank was lifted on May 13th. Now workers are nearly finished with scrapping both the tank and its shell, clearing space to remove another one. Consequently, on the 18th, another tank shell had its moment, feeling just like a Starship for a second as the LR-11000 crane hoisted it from the tank farm. Beneath it was yet another nitrogen GSE tank, but this time it was the last one. Once it's removed, the vertical nitrogen storage will be completely eliminated. With that, we're left with just 3 tanks, and all of them are dedicated to liquid oxygen. From what we know, they are no longer used during testing, meaning they'll be removed soon. This is exciting news. The shockwaves created during launches will no longer be an issue, but most importantly, the view will be amazing. What do you think? Are you glad that the original tank farm is almost gone? Please let me know in the comments below. Moving to the orbital launch integration tower itself, we finally see the image we've been waiting for so long, the full stack. This time we had to wait longer than usual for this event because the Ship 31 incident during the cryogenic test at Massey's resulted in SpaceX pausing all Starship operations. Finally, on the 15th, the arms of Mechazilla grabbed Ship 29 and placed it on top of Super Heavy Booster 11. And there was a surprising side effect you might not be aware of yet. Fortunately, the modifications made to the chopsticks did not damage the heat shield during the lift, despite them being equipped with padding. As always, Elon Musk's company shared some stunning footage from this maneuver. With the next not quite orbital Starship on the pad, SpaceX moved on to testing. We were all expecting to see a full wet dress rehearsal, where both stages of the rocket are filled with real propellant. So it wasn't much of a surprise when on the 16th, Highway 4 was closed, the pad was vacated, and the tank farm spun up. Around 1 p.m. local time, a frost line began forming on Starship's tanks, indicating that fueling had begun. Everything seemed to be going perfectly, but then, just a few minutes in, the vehicle was detanked, and by 2 p.m. the frost line was gone. So, was it a failed WDR? Well, no. Typically, during tests with large amounts of liquid methane, we see both notices to mariners and evacuation notices to the residents of Boca Chica. This time there were none, so it is very likely this was just a test to verify the recent tank farm upgrades. It's called GSE, or Ground Service Equipment Commissioning. Everything needs to be tested before the dangerous part begins. Fueling a rocket is always connected to certain risks. Later, workers were spotted performing tasks in the liquid oxygen tank, which is visible from the ventilation hose, which is there for the crew's safety. It provides fresh air, and at the same time it sucks out harmful fumes from welding. If you've been following Starbase progress for some time, that hose might be triggering some memories. A similar hose was vaporized during Booster 7's Sprint Prime test, which ended in a massive explosion. It's wild to think that this prototype suffered 2 major malfunctions and yet ended up being the Super Heavy of the first flight-worthy stack. This gives me confidence that Ship 31 will also be fully repaired. Now, with the mini WDR out of the way, it is time for the real deal. According to Kathy Leder's general manager at Starbase, the full Starship test is planned for this week. With road closures ranging from May 20th to 22nd, SpaceX may have either already completed the test or is about to conduct one by the time you're watching this. Either way, after the WDR is done, there will still be some work left to do, although it should only take a few days. Ship 29 will be destacked, allowing workers to install the missing heat tiles, hopefully add S29 decals, and equip the vehicle with flight termination system charges. Hopefully they won't be needed this time. Once that is done, it is just a matter of lifting it one last time and lighting that candle. Now, before I tell you about the regulatory side of things, here is a word about an epic game we're proud to have a sponsoring for, one that I love and want to recommend to you. As an engineering enthusiast, I am drawn to lifelike graphics and military machinery in games. Which is why I am very sure you'll love War Thunder, my latest obsession. War Thunder, an epic free multiplayer military game available on PC, PlayStation and Xbox, offers a vast range of detailed military machinery spanning a century across land, sea and air. The immersive sounds and visually stunning battles are incredible. The adrenaline rush truly highlights warfare's impact, especially with advanced technologies like guided missiles and nukes. But it's more than just hardware. I play how I want, commanding a tank, navigating a ship, or engaging in dogfights in the sky. With customizable vehicles, I can wear decals and decorations like a boss, while mastering the unique damage modeling system. Every enemy hit is vividly portrayed in X-ray mode, making each impact tangible. Join now for the Alpha Strike update featuring Hungarian aviation, both modern and classic. Explore the enhanced visuals of the new North Holland map and battle in the Red Light District or wreak havoc in the shopping center. Download War Thunder for free using the link below. New players and those inactive for over 6 months get special bonuses. Week-long rentals for the P-40E-1 aircraft and M4 tank with free unique skins, a special decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, 3 free premium vehicles, a week of premium account and more. Hurry, the American vehicle bonus season ends now. Download now, game and support Y at the same time. Okay, back to Starship paperwork. We still need to see notices to air missions and notices to mariners for Texas and Mexico, as well as the landing zone in the Indian Ocean. Then there are the road closures, which haven't been released yet. Finally, Starship can't leave the tower without a launch license. Usually obtaining one requires not only a successful wet dress rehearsal, but also a closed mishap investigation with a conclusion that satisfies the FAA. However, this time, SpaceX may launch Starship while the investigation is still pending. Wait a second, Felix, isn't that illegal? It is, unless the FAA says it's okay. In a recent statement, the agency revealed that they are evaluating whether the third Starship flight posed any safety concerns to the public. If they determine that everything was fine and that the vehicle disintegrated in the predicted areas, the FAA could modify the launch license without requiring the mishap report. This could be huge. I mean, seriously, you don't know what big of a deal this actually is. Currently, a mishap investigation takes up the largest chunk of time dedicated to the regulatory side of a launch. Now, to be clear, the FAA isn't bending any rules for SpaceX. This is an option available to every launch provider. Obviously, that doesn't mean SpaceX isn't required to complete the investigation at all, it just isn't directly tied to the license. This may explain why the company is expecting to receive the license as soon as after Memorial Day, which is just a week from now. According to a recent statement by Kathy Leder's, the first day they get that license, they are going to launch. So in conclusion, we should expect the launch anywhere from the last week of May to the first half of June, definitely within less than a month. And while getting the license without submitting the mishap investigation will help increase the launch cadence, we'll see an even bigger impact once the second tower is operational. Over at the former suborbital site, things are starting to get exciting. The legendary Pad B is completely gone, and you can't even tell that it was ever there. Hardware is also gradually disappearing from the tank farm itself. On the 17th, both the small and the large liquid methane tanks were removed. A day later, SpaceX got rid of these 3 tanks that were used to store water. Unfortunately, it looks like they won't be reused, as the first tank ripped apart during the lift and the last one was straight up scrapped on site. We also saw the removal of another section of the Gateway to Mars sign, but the whole thing likely won't last much longer anyway. In the last episode, we speculated that SpaceX might be planning to put the actual tower behind that wall. Now, these suspicions have been confirmed. The Federal Aviation Administration published SpaceX's filing regarding the second OLIT. The filing lists details such as the tower's height, which should be 482 feet or 147 meters above mean sea level, but more importantly, gives the exact coordinates for its location. They line up pretty well with the area where engineers are currently reinforcing the ground by adding piles. This suggests that the tower might be the first structure we'll see at the second orbital launch site. It is getting real. Once the ground is stabilized, foundations will be poured, followed by the creation of a concrete base. With tower number 1, OLIT stacking began in April 2021. At the same time, the first section was installed not as a single piece, but as individual columns. Now the process will look entirely different. All sections are already completed, and SpaceX aims to pre-install as much stuff as possible. This is why the sections are already equipped with features like stairs, Mechazilla rails, and some cryopipes. On May 15th, the 7th tower segment joined segments 8 and 9 at the Sanchez site. Then, on the 17th, our photographer John captured segment number 2 waiting at the road adjacent to the port of Brownsville, and it was moved to Starbase later that night. This brings the total number of sections to 4, with 3 more waiting at the port and 2 still at Roberts Road. Once SpaceX actually begins the stacking process, things will progress quickly. Tower 1 was stacked in just 4 months, but with the most important parts already pre-installed, it may take half that time or even less. Man, this year will be crazy. And regarding that next launch, I have a big announcement to make. I'll be in town for Flight 4. The announcement is about what happens after the launch though. We'll have a party. It is a bit of a tradition already, and I've done this before, but this time you can grab a spot and be part of it. Head over to raptorroost.com with 1 R in the middle and fill out the waiver. The party is on launch day and after the launch as soon as the roads open again. raptorroost.com. The link is in the description. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the IFT4 after launch party. A spot is $20, so basically nothing if you sign the waiver before showing up, and $25 if you decide to make it a very spontaneous trip. Spots are limited and the link is in the description. Now, before we continue with Starship news, we've looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. And while you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter for exclusive SpaceX updates. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries, including satellite, aerial, and ground photos of SpaceX's progress, and countless other extras on top. No matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. Okay, that was quite a lot of news about the launch site, but the production site isn't idle either. Starting at the high bay, we can find the aforementioned Ship 31, which unfortunately decided to static fire its electric wiring. Due to this incident, after it's repaired, it will likely need to go back to Massey's for another round of testing. It's just better to be safe than sorry. Moving outside the base, we see the future of Starship production, also known as the Star Factory. From the front, it appears that its facade is complete. The glass is fully installed and cladding covers all empty spaces in the walls. I must admit, while it doesn't look as good as in the renders created by our 3D artist Wooper, it still turned out stunning. What do you think? Definitely the best looking building at Starbase. Naturally, what really matters are the insides of the factory. While many Starship parts are already being manufactured here, Kathy Leaders mentioned that the building should be fully operational by the end of this year. She also hinted at the possibility of another high bay or mega bay at the production site. The exact quote is, "and then we'll probably be in the process of building another high bay." This could mean two things. Either she misspoke and was referring to Mega Bay 2, which technically still isn't finished, or we will see another booster or ship assembly building. Looking from the air, there are a few locations where such a structure could be erected. A bay would nicely fit on the opposite side of the first high bay. However, this is an unlikely location, as maneuvering sections and prototypes would be quite difficult in such a tight space. On the other hand, directly connecting Star Factory to the production buildings would protect sections from being exposed to the elements. For a more practical location, there is a large area behind the first Mega Bay that isn't used efficiently. It mainly serves as a simple parking space and a place where Elon Musk gives his Starship updates. Another great location would be to the side of the first high bay. The only downside of placing a building there is that it would require relocating the Stargate. What do you think? Is another high or mega bay even needed? If so, where would be the best place for it? Please let me know in the comments. Now, sometimes we talk so much about Starship that we tend to forget about the little guy, a rocket that has basically perfected the landing maneuver, making expendable rockets obsolete. I am of course talking about Falcon 9, which just crushed yet another record. It happened during a routine Starlink launch when booster B1062 lifted off from Florida's Slick 40 on May 18th, carrying 23 satellites on board. Believe it or not, this was the 21st launch for this booster. It has previously supported many launches, including 2 GPS-3 satellites, the legendary Inspiration 4 mission, and the first Axiom launch. It is incredible that we're living in times when, with just a few more launches, a single Falcon 9 booster will have flown more times than the entire Vegas family of rockets. As expected, the landing went perfectly, with the booster touching down on the A Shortfall of Gravitas drone ship. Moreover, SpaceX is already in the process of certifying boosters for up to 40 flights, so the legacy of B1062 might continue for a very long time. Unless it's used for a mission that requires an expendable booster. SpaceX tends to choose the ones with the most flight heritage for this task. Moving on from SpaceX, we visit United Launch Alliance, which is currently facing some challenges. As you probably know, they are in the process of introducing a new rocket into the launch market. Vulcan Centaur is ULA's answer to the evolving space business, although, as is often the case with this company, their main focus is on national security launches. Back in 2020, the US Space Force announced the winners of the second phase of the National Security Space Launch, or NSSL program. The two companies selected to launch a total of 48 missions were SpaceX and ULA. Funnily enough, despite SpaceX's impressive track record, they originally received only 40% of the missions, while ULA got the remaining 60%. This decision was based on the expectation that the still under development Vulcan would be ready in time to carry its payload to orbit. Unfortunately, as is often the case with new rockets, things didn't go as smoothly as planned. Initially, the rocket was slated to debut in 2020, but ultimately it launched in January 2024. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, to be fair, the launch went perfectly and the vehicle performed as expected. ULA, or previously Boeing, have been developing rockets for decades now, so they knew what they were doing. Well, if it finally launched, can't they just shift other missions and prioritize NSSL payloads? Nah, it's not that simple. For the Vulcan Centaur to be certified for military use, it must complete at least 2 successful missions. This means it needs to launch at least once more with some payload on board. For the second certification flight, ULA planned to use the Dream Chaser, a spaceplane designed by Sierra Space to carry resupply missions to the ISS. I love Dream Chaser. Unfortunately, Dream Chaser is also facing delays. Despite completing most of its testing, it won't be ready to launch until at least September this year, leaving ULA without a payload. All these delays can't go on without any consequences, which is why the Air Force slapped the company with a fine. The amount of the fine wasn't revealed, but hopefully it will be a wake-up call for ULA to get things back on track. In fact, certifying the Vulcan is so crucial that if Sierra can't meet the deadline, ULA will proceed with their second mission using a simple mass simulator instead of a functional payload. Hopefully they'll eventually be able to ramp up the launches, as Vulcan Centaur is truly a beautiful rocket. Since we're already discussing ULA, why not mention Boeing and Starliner? So what do you think? Did the Starliner finally launch on its first crewed mission? If you said no, then unfortunately you are correct. At the beginning of May, Atlas V was already waiting at the launch pad with the capsule mounted on top. As the astronauts for this mission were getting comfortable in their seats, the launch was suddenly aborted. It turned out that there was an oxygen relief valve issue with the upper stage of Atlas V. Normally this would be ignored during a regular flight, but with people on board it is not a risk worth taking. This is why the launch was scrubbed and engineers began analyzing the issue. It was quickly discovered that the valve would have to be replaced, resulting in a rollback and a launch postponed. Okay, but with that fixed, now there is nothing stopping Boeing from launching the Starliner, right? Yeah, about that. During final checks of the capsule, Boeing's engineers discovered that one of the 28 reaction control thrusters was leaking helium, causing a pressure drop in the system. Apparently, the solution to this issue is to tighten the bolts and test for leaks. Tighten the bolts? Are you kidding me? Dude. With this, the mission has been delayed once again, this time to May 25th. As always, fingers crossed, and let's all hope that this was the last time I had to say the words Starliner delayed. This is it for today. Remember to smash the like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and it helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to fuel your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Okay, that was weird. I am of course talking about the ping on my phone. Is what fuels, that is what it did. Evacuation. Fall of gravitas.